Here we will provide you with the sports betting tips, picks, and information in order for you to become a successful gambler. We have 5 packages that I think really do an incredible job of providing the information tailored to you, what you want, and what your sports betting needs are. For more information, reach out to the TWSN team, but we have a ton of stuff coming your way. Content from fantasy football, sports betting for UFC, NBA, NHL, and of course the NFL. We are so excited to be able to bring this service to you, and let us know if there's any more information you need.
Get up, let me begin. This is TWSN. You ain't heard about us yet, well you better know now because it's the place that it all goes down.
Welcome back to another episode of the On the Ball Show here on the Right Way Sports Network YouTube channel. I'm your host, Thomas Stapleton. We are missing our host, Will Lachlan. We miss him very much. We are also missing one of our other co-hosts, Nader. We miss both of those guys very much, but we still got an awesome show for you guys. I am here with my co-hosts, Justin Lacertosa and Jacob Aframian. How you guys doing today?
I'm doing good. I can't wait to jump into this entire Eastern Conference. You know, Nader is usually the one that gets Jacob riled up, but when I talk about the Knicks, I think I could get Jacob towards the level Nader gets him. I don't know if I'll get it to that level because that's a love-hate relationship, but I'm going to try my best to get all of it out of Jacob tonight, so I'm excited.
Well, thank you for thank you, Thomas. I'm glad to be here. Unfortunately, we're 2 men down, but we'll do a fine job anyway. And I am ready to roll. Excited to break down the East. Justin, don't worry. I will. The Wizards they're gonna feel it when I break down the East, but not as much as the Bulls are, which is why I'm so upset that Nader is not here because I'm the Bulls. You know what? No, I'm not gonna do it now because I want you to watch the show.
Yeah. Let's save it. All right. So before we get into the big Eastern Conference preview, just like to remind you guys, make sure to download the TWSN mobile app. Make sure to follow us on all social medias, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff. Make sure to go follow us in as many places as possible so you don't miss out on any of our content. But with that being said, we're going to talk some preseason basketball. We finally got some basketball back. The past few days have been really great. I'm really enjoying having basketball back, even if it is meaningless. But, you know, there are some things to break down. There are some things to take away. So, Justin, I'm going to go to you first. What's one thing that's really caught your eye that you've seen so far this preseason?
So I've never really thought preseason mattered too much. Obviously, it means a good amount to players like rookies or players that are coming off an injury season to get back on their feet. But I don't think it matters too much because I think we know most teams' expectations going into next year. Obviously, there's a few surprise teams and a few disappointing teams every year. But for the most part, we have a rough idea. And a team that's honestly surprised me a good amount is the Memphis Grizzlies. They are undefeated in preseason as of right now. And the Grizzlies in this offseason, they traded some win-now players and some great pieces like Jonas Valanciunas for younger players and picks. And it looked like the Grizzlies weren't entering a full-blown rebuild like the OKC Thunder, but it looked like they were trying to retool, sit back for a year, miss the playoffs and the play-in, and get another high draft pick to get a guy next to John Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. But I think the Grizzlies might overachieve again because watching them in the preseason, they're playing very similarly to the way they played in the past 2 years with John Morant. And the way they play is a recipe for success because the Grizzlies, they're a team that likes to move the ball a lot under Taylor Jenkins, which I think that's definitely going to continue. And I really like what I've seen from John Morant. I think he's going to take a jump as a scorer next year, but we haven't really seen him shoot the ball from beyond the arc at a high level in the preseason, which is still worrying. But he's developed a few more moves that he could go to, so I think that's very promising for his development. I think he's going to have a big year 3. And as a playmaker, I think that's only going to help him with an advanced scoring skill set. And guys like Jaren Jackson Jr., if healthy, which is a big if for him, I think he's going to have a big year. Steven Adams, although he's not as good as Jonas Valanciunas, I think he's a better fit on this roster than he was. And I think he's younger, and I think he's just going to help this team a little more on the defensive end especially. And then guys like Dylan Brooks, Kyle Anderson, the list goes on. And Taylor Jenkins, I think the most underrated coach in basketball. And he's a very young coach that's growing with this group. So I think the 8 seed is kind of wide open in the Western Conference, and obviously we won't be talking about the West this week. That'll be next week. But I think the Grizzlies could easily have a chance to be an 8 seed and make the playoffs again, even despite the fact that they traded some win-now players for lesser pieces.
Yeah, and Jacob, I pose the same question to you. Has there been anything that's caught your eye over the past couple of days with preseason?
Excuse me, not much. I think that again, the preseason it's great, but I think it's very important not to take too much stock into certain things that happen in the preseason. Again, I know this is a basketball show, but football. The Detroit Lions in 2008 went 4-0 in the preseason. Do you know what they finished with that year? They were 0-16. So, you never know like how much stock you can buy into preseason. But anyway, we're talking basketball. So with that being said, I think that Jalen Green, I watched some clips from that Miami game. I thought he looked pretty good. I thought John Morant looked pretty good. I think it's going to be interesting to see. Obviously, Justin talked ad nauseum about the Grizzlies, who I think are going to have a very interesting year to see where they fit in that very crowded Western Conference. And I like the way the Knicks played. I thought that and obviously, yes, I'm a fan, whatever, but I liked the way that they came out. I was really impressed with the way Obi Toppin played. I thought that just the way he played, and he had a tough rookie year, but I thought he came on pretty strong towards the end of the playoffs, and it seemed like his post game was refined. He was very, intuitive and stuff like that. And to me, I think that he could be a really good guy off the bench. One of the things that I think that this Knicks team has is, even though, we'll talk about them later with the East, but they have more, they're better. They have a lot more depth, and they're better as a shooting team. And they had another year-round tip system. But yeah, I think the Knicks were fun to watch. And I think some of these other teams are fun to watch because it's nice to see the first action of young players, because summer league is like, it's very different. It's much more like, it's like a juvenile thing. This is like everybody. So yeah, I never take too much stock in the preseason, but it's just good to have basketball back.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, just talking about the Grizzlies and like Jalen Green, for instance, I really like what I've seen out of the Grizzlies too. My big thing is like, who are they going to prioritize playing? That's my biggest question mark. For Steven Adams in particular, I don't know how many minutes I'd give him a game. Like, I think at this point in his career, he's strictly a backup center. Like, if I'm being honest, I think if the Grizzlies team is serious about making the playoffs, I would start Xavier Tillman. Tillman at this point in his career might even be a better defender, much more switchable, has incredible instincts as a rim protector, is just a super versatile center. Like, if I'm the Grizzlies, I'm looking to start him instead of Steven Adams. Jaren Jackson Jr. is finally getting a healthy season. And Ja, what's interesting is that two guards that kind of fit Ja Morant's prototype, Russell Westbrook and Derrick Rose. And obviously those are two very high outcomes for Ja Morant. But those two both took big jumps in their third year. That was the year that they really were able to put it all together. And Ja Morant, he's had two great seasons so far, but I think this is the year that he could really start to put it all together and cement himself kind of in that top 25, maybe even top 20 conversation. I've yet to see him make that leap, but I think this could be his kind of time to do that. But anyways, we're not talking about the West today. We are going all Eastern Conference today. We're going to be discussing every single team. Let's start it off with the Boston Celtics. I think they're one of the more interesting teams in the league. They're one of the teams I struggled with most in terms of seeding. But Jacob, I'll start with you. What are kind of your expectations for the Boston Celtics, and what seed do you think they will be in the East?
Yeah, I think the Celtics are a really interesting team. I had a very tough time thinking about where they're going to be. I think they're definitely a playoff team, but at the same time, I think that the East, I feel like people are underselling how competitive the East is. Everyone talks about, oh yeah, the East, it's like no one's good. I think that's a bunch of baloney. I think the East is very good this year, and I think it's pretty stacked. And I think it's all those 10 spots are going to be worthy teams as far as like the extension with the play-in. The Celtics I have as my 8 seed, but I say that in a way that is not demeaning. I mean, even though I don't like the Celtics, but like I think the Celtics are a really good team. I like their improvements. I feel like I love them getting Al Horford back. I thought that was a tremendous move. I think he should start. I think even though he always wanted to play power forward, he's too old to play power forward. I think he's very good at center. I just like the way he plays, and I think he should be happy being back in Boston. I liked him getting Josh Richardson. I thought that was a good move. I like them getting Schroeder on the cheap. I also think that's a very good move. I think he'll have something to prove, knowing that, like, everyone talks about all the money he lost in an offer. So I think he has something to prove. And I think Ime Udoka, I think he's going to be pretty good. It's going to be interesting to see what kind of coach he is and how he's different from Brad Stevens. And again, Danny Ainge is gone. He's not gone, but I think that his role is much more small, is a lot smaller than it used to be. So that's going to be interesting. And the Celtics, they're an 8 seed, but they're a very good 8 seed. So that's where I have them.
For the Boston Celtics, I mean, as Jacob said, this is a team that could really go in two different directions, but I have them in the other direction. I think they're going to be a 4 seed. And depending on what happens with the other top 3 teams, who I'll get to later, obviously, they could easily be a top 3 team in the East as well. This is a team that, outside of last year, which they were affected by COVID and injuries and everything that you don't want affecting your team, they were affected by all the negatives, and that's what really led them to being a 7 seed and a play-in team. I think if healthy, Jalen Brown just got tested positive for COVID, so he'll be out for the beginning of the year, but not for too long. I'm not too worried about that. But as long as Boston's healthy, I really like them going into next season. I love Ime Udoka as a coach. I think he deserves that spot as the head coach on this team. And although he's not the X's and O mastermind that Brad Stevens was, I think he's going to do a better job at getting this locker room together. And I do think he's capable of putting a good product on the floor together for the Boston Celtics. And obviously, the dynamic duo of Jalen Brown and Jason Tatum, I expect Tatum to have another jump and solidify himself as a player that most people have around their top 10 and a little outside of that. But I think he's going to be a constant in those conversations. And I think he's going to have an MVP season. And Jalen Brown is another guy I expect to take another jump. He's improved every year of his career. I think he's going to have another year where he averages near 25 points. And I think hopefully his off-ball defense gets better. That's something I hope to see. But as a whole, I think he takes another jump. And just this team, as Jacob mentioned, Dennis Schroeder at that cheap, that's definitely a steal. Al Horford was a big pickup again. And Robert Williams is another guy that, if healthy, which, again, for him, that's a big if, I think he's going to take a big jump into a top 15 center in the league. Peyton Pritchard's another guy, even though he's an older, young player, I guess you could say it like that. I think he takes a big jump in his second year. Josh Richardson, he hasn't been great the past few years, but on teams that are defensive-centric, I think he's been good in those situations. And this Boston team has defense from top to bottom. And another guy, defense, Marcus Smart, one of the best role players in basketball. He's been that for the majority of his career. And Aaron Nesmith is a guy that I think takes a jump into a borderline starting caliber player because of his shooting. And I think his playmaking's gone a little under the radar. I think he's going to be a really solid piece. Overall, I like the Celtics going into next year. I'm not sure how far they get in the playoffs, but I think they're definitely going to be a great regular season team.
I'll just say this. I have them as the 7th seed. I'm really torn. There's a lot of things to like. I think one thing, the Dennis Schroeder signing, I really love because this team simply doesn't put pressure on the rim enough. Like, they just don't. Their stars don't. Tatum and Brown are so jumper reliant. Smart doesn't get to the rim at all. None of their role players really do. So I think having a guy like Schroeder, someone who's really quick, really fast, can get into the lane, that's going to be really, really important for kind of breaking down defenses. Their offense won't be as stagnant. Hopefully they take more corner threes this year, because I remember their corner 3 frequency was always really, really bad. And another thing I'm watching for is kind of the center rotation. I don't really know what they're going to do with it. Rob Williams I really like Rob. I think his development has been interesting to track, but he's never been able to stay healthy for a full season, and that really hurts Boston. So are they going to start Robert Williams? Are they going to start Al Horford if they want like a more established veteran? I don't really know what they're going to do kind of with their bigs. And I believe did they get Cantor back as well? I think they got Cantor back as well. They did. Yeah, he's kind of a situational big. I can't imagine a world where he starts. But those are kind of the two things I track. I wanna like the Celtics more, but the East is so good, and I think the 7th seed is fair. They're a very good 7th seed at that. Now we can talk about Jacob's team, the New York Knicks. And you know what? Why don't you lead us off? Spread your Knicks propaganda. Let's hear it.
It's funny how we went from the Celtics, who I have as the 8, and as much as I love the Knicks, I have them as my 7th seed. Now, I'm not ashamed to say that. I'm not upset about that. I just think the East got better. And I just, even though I think the Knicks got better, but I think the East got better. But This Knicks team, I think it's a very good team. I feel like year 200 tips is going to be very good. I think it's entirely possible they could. I think they won 41 games last year. They could honestly win more games, but have a lower seed because there's more. Obviously, there was 10 less games last year. I think it's entirely possible. But I like this team a lot. I like the addition of Fournier. They kept Alec Burks. They kept Derrick Rose. I think Kemba, I know the legs, the knees, whatever, they're not 1,000% anymore. But I think he's very happy to be home. I just don't understand why he didn't sign with us when he had the chance a few years ago, if he loves New York so much, but that's his problem. Anyway, I am excited about the Knicks. I'm worried about Randle because I'm very worried that people may have figured him out. He was very bad in the playoffs. He's way too reliant on his left hand. He's way too reliant on doing a lot of the same old moves every single time. He has to expand his game, not by like taking more shots or from a certain range, but just expand it as far as how he plays. Barrett, I'm very iffy on. I've never been crazy about RJ Barrett, at least after I was very happy when they drafted him, but I want more. People always tell me, oh, he's going to, whatever, but I want more out of RJ Barrett. He needs to start, fortifying himself or, differentiating himself from the rest of the pack. I think he will. Although I'm not, 1,000% sure on that. I'm a little worried about the 5 spot. Mitchell Robinson he's very raw still. And, he's put on a lot of muscle, which is good, but he gets in foul trouble very easily. I want him to be able to have some post game and get back to scoring 10, 12 points a game. But overall, I think the Knicks are going to do really well, have a good season. And I think that even if they're the 7th seed, I still think you can say it's a success because it's playoff basketball. And as a Knicks fan, I want to get back to that.
So for the Knicks, I talked about it before the show. This is a team that I think I should be high on, but out of all the teams in the East, this might be the team that I can't really have a full solidified spot for. I wouldn't be shocked if they're a top 5 team in the East again. I also wouldn't be shocked if they're as low as 10. For their standing pick, I have them at 9, and that's not including whether they'll win the play-in or not. I think they probably would win the play-in if they get to the 9th seed. But from 6 to 9, I have it as a 2-game difference, so it's not that big of a deal. Again, it's just the East is so stacked, so it's hard to really evaluate that. But I really like how this team's constructed. The main question marks are Julius Randle and Kemba Walker. Kemba Walker, if he's healthy, I think will have a bounce-back year, and I think will be in all-star conversations. However, I can't really trust Kemba Walker to be healthy for a full season at this point in his career. That's just something that we haven't really seen throughout his entire career, especially since getting to Boston and now out of Boston in New York. I think it's hard to trust that he'll be healthy for a full 82-game season. But if he is, I think he's going to have a huge season. I think he's going to be a huge part to their success. And if he is, I think they are a top 5 to 6 seed in the East. And Julius Randle, I have a question mark around him, mainly because, as Jacob said, he may have been simply figured out. And I don't think his regular season play will be affected as much as it was in the playoffs. But I could easily see him falling back down to earth because that was just a season that really no one at all expected. And now we saw in the playoffs that it's pretty easy to neutralize him. I don't think that'll happen on a nightly basis, but I think we'll see some more inconsistencies for him throughout the year. And I like the Evan Fournier pickup a lot. That's just another offensive option, another shooter, scorer that they could plug in. But in the backcourt, although Tom Thibodeau does have a knack of making teams that aren't really great defensively better, it's just Kemba Walker and Evan Fournier in the backcourt. That's a little bit rough as a whole defensively. RJ Barrett, I have the same feelings as Jacob. I think down the line he's going to be a star. It's just next year, I don't think he takes a massive jump into a star. I think he'll improve, and I think he'll improve as a shot creator and create more for himself, but I don't think it's going to be anything massive. And Mitchell Robinson's a guy I'm very high on. I think in the future he could be a Defensive Player of the Year candidate if he gets his foul problems, if he gets that away. I think he could be a Defensive Player of the Year candidate very soon. But again, it's another guy who it's hard to project him staying on the floor. And as for their bench, this team is just deep, and that's what I like about it. Derrick Rose is my pick for 6th Man of the Year. I think he replicates what he did last year in New York. Alec Burks, they brought back, again, another shooter, scorer, offensive option off the bench. Obi Toppin, as Jacob said, I've loved what I've seen from him in the preseason. I think he's going to have an improved year. Nerlens Noel, we saw how good he was in a starting role. So now bringing him off the bench as your backup center. he might be the best backup big in the league. And Emmanuel quickly, I expect to take a jump in his second year. Overall, this is a team that it's hard for me to fully evaluate, but they could be anywhere from 5 to 10, and I'm going to put them at 9 for now.
I absolutely love the way the Knicks have constructed their roster. Kemba Walker, I understand, like, there are some question marks with him, but at the very least, he is a really, really good pull-up shooter still at this stage in his career. He is really good at getting to the rim, even if he's not great at finishing at the rim. And finally, you are pairing Julius Randle with another legit creator. And that is going to be so huge. It's going to take off so much of a load from him. There are going to be you kind of have two big off-ball scoring wings with Barrett and Fournier. You've got a great rim protector in Mitchell Robinson, and you've got kind of the guy you can run your offense through in Julius Randle. Now, I'm almost less concerned with Randle like being figured out and more concerned that I'm concerned about his fluky shooting. If you go look at Julius Randle's career, he has never been a good shooter. Like he's always been a below average or average shooter. And now all of a sudden he is taking a career high by a lot in threes and hitting over 40% of them. That's hard for me to see. I just can't see that being replicated again. And I know this is kind of the Davion Mitchell thing, where it was like, oh, he shot 44% from three, but he's never been a good shooter before. It's kind of the same thing with Julius Randle here. But I have my questions about like how legit that shooting is going to be again this year. And if that shooting is not legit, how good is he going to be? Because he just relies so much on shooting a ton of jumpers. Like his shot selection isn't great. But last year it didn't matter because he made so many shots. That's the main thing I'm worried about. But if you have someone who can get into the lane, two legit creators, two off-ball scoring wings, a rim protector, and a defensive-minded head coach, you're going to win basketball games. With that said, I have them as the 8th seed. I want to put them higher, but I can't. The Eastern Conference it's too good, unfortunately. Now we're getting to the top. We're going to the Brooklyn Nets. I'm interested to hear what you guys think about them in terms of, I think we're all kind of at least on a similar page in terms of playoffs, but I want to hear where you guys stand on them as a regular season team. Justin, I'll start with you.
So Kyrie Irving's a big question mark here because whether he'll play or not, that's really the big question, but it depends. I don't think him not playing in the playoffs, if that's a possibility at that point, really matters as much as it does in the regular season. I think they would have a bigger drop-off in the regular season without him than in the playoffs. As a whole, this is my finals pick and my championship pick as a whole, with or without Kyrie Irving. And I think for the regular season, let's just say he's healthy for now, or he's playing for now, that I think they're going to run away with the first seed. And obviously there are some concerns with Harden's health, Kyrie's health, Kevin Durant's health, because they've all been injury-prone players. But the games where you get at least two of them on the floor, they're not going to lose many games at all together. I think they're just a truly dominant team when they're all fully healthy, even when you just have two of them on the floor. I think they're a truly dominant team. And it's not even just fully the star power. It's also the depth, and it's also the way they play. The offense it looks like it looks so cohesive in the games they've played. And it's just, I think, outside of the Golden State Warriors, this is the most unstoppable offense in recent memory by a good amount. And they have guys like Joe Harris, who obviously his shooting woes in the playoffs won't transfer over to the regular season. And if it does, that's a big problem. But I don't really see him being that bad. I think he's still going to be the Joe Harris we all know, one of the best shooters in the league. Lamarcus Aldridge, they just got him back. He's looked fine to me in preseason. I think he'll be solid this year. I think he'll bring around a good 10 points per game, some rebounds. I've honestly liked what I've seen from him defensively, considering he wasn't a great defender throughout his entire career. He's kind of focused on it more, I feel like, as a net, knowing he has a chance to win a title. He's not some great defender, but he's doing his work on that end of the floor. Patty Mills is a guy that I could see just competing for a Sixth-Man of the Year spot. I'm not sure how many minutes he'll play, but play him 20 minutes a night. He'll get you 10 points, and he'll put up some efficient numbers. And Blake Griffin's another guy. He's the glue guy of this team, I think, or one of the glue guys, I would say. I think there's a couple that they have, which is even scarier. Blake Griffin, his defense has turned around as a whole. He's looked like a great defender. He looked like that in the playoffs in the regular season last year. And Bruce Brown, another one of their glue guys that they have, I think is going to just play his role as a defender. He scores on the inside when he needs to. He's a great cutter. And Nicholas Claxton, this is a guy that I've talked about since he's gotten drafted. I think he's going to be a star. And then he won't break out into that this year, but if he gets the opportunity to, and if he stays healthy, I think he's going to be in conversations. He won't make it, but in conversations for an all-defensive team. And there's a bunch of wild cards on the team, too. I liked what I saw from DeAndre Bembry as a Toronto Raptor, and if he plays, I think he's going to be a really solid player as a playmaker and defender. And Jevon Carter is a guy that I like. He's a solid shooter off the catch, and he's a solid playmaker and defender as well. And James Johnson's obviously one of the toughest players in the league. I don't think he's going to play much, but he'll bring that to the locker room. And Cam Thomas, he's been killing it in preseason. And if he carries over even the slightest bit of that in his playing time that he gets in the regular season, that makes him even scarier. But I think they're a first seed for the regular season. I think they win the East regardless, unless two players go out. But I think they're a first seed for now. Without Kyrie Irving, I think they could be 2 or 3, but I'm still going to roll with them at first regardless.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Justin said, but the Nets are my 2 seed. I think they're very good. I think they're better in many ways. I like the additions, Cam Thomas, Paul Millsap. God, lost my train of thought, but just other guys as well that I like. I like, I'm sorry, like, I don't know what the heck I was going to say, but I like some of the pieces that they already have. I like Claxton. I like Joe Harris. I mean, he's all right, but, I think that the thing about Brooklyn is that what worries me is, can they get it all together? I'm not a Steve Nash guy as a coach. I don't think he's a very good coach. I don't think he is command of a locker room. I don't think I don't know. They didn't play any defense last year unless they had to, which worries me. They got killed on the boards against the Bucks. And when you get rebounded by Brook Lopez, that means you are very bad at rebounding, because Brook Lopez is the worst rebounding 5 in the history of basketball. So that's a problem. They have to get better at that. They have to get a lot tougher. I love the fact that they got James Johnson, because he's probably tougher than almost their entire roster combined last year. And I think that the Nets need grit. They need glue guys. They need people that actually play defense that are tough, that they're going to get in someone's face and get texts. I honestly believe that they need that. I like Jevon Carter. I like, the other guys that I already mentioned. But yeah, Kyrie, his status, if he's going to get the vaccine or not, that's a big up in the air thing. I think that, I don't know what he's going to do. He's a big wild card. We'll see what happens. But I think the Nets, even if they don't have Curry, they're going to be very, very good. But I think that they still need, even as much as it's coming from me, I still think they need Kyrie to take them over the top.
Yeah, I'll make this pretty quick. They're my 1 seed. They're my championship team as of right now. They're just too loaded. Like, for me last year, like, they got away with not playing any defense for the entire season and were a inch away from making the finals. So, and they were probably going to win those finals. So, as long as Kyrie gets vaccinated eventually, I don't know what he's going to do. I'm not going to touch on that, but as long as he plays, I think they're going to be fine. And in the regular season, I don't think they're going to suffer too much. I mean, last year they were riddled with injuries. Durant played like 20 games. Harden was out a good amount. Kyrie was out a good amount, and they were still the number 1 seed. That's how good they are. And I feel like their bench got even better this year. I guess the big thing for me is their center rotation. I don't know what they're going to do. They've got Blake, Aldridge, Claxton. They all kind of bring their own different style, so you can kind of just play them based off the matchups. They also ran Bruce Brown at center a ton, which sounds crazy, but it worked if you watched it. It was really weird. And I kind of think, like, you guys both brought up Jevon Carter, and I think that's actually a good name, because I think he could actually replicate some of the things Bruce Brown did, because he's around like 6'2", kind of built, can finish at the rim, and just kind of do the same thing that Bruce Brown just did last year. So I don't really know what they're going to do with their center situation. Like, if you're playing Bruce Brown at center against the Bucks, like, you're going to lose. But in the regular season, I think they're going to be fine. I think if Kyrie or Harden is out for whatever reason, you can put real hooper Cam Thomas in. He's going to get you buckets. Yeah, I think the Nets are really good. Really, really good. Now let's talk about the Toronto Raptors. Jacob, you can kick this one off.
Thank you, Thomas. Yeah, the Raptors. Raptors are a very interesting team. I think they're in a bit of a rebuild mode. Kyle Lowry, one of their founding fathers, for lack of a better word, is gone. And obviously that's a big deal. They were good last year. They weren't great. They have a lot of good young pieces. Van Vliet. I love Gary Trent Jr. I like him a lot. I honestly, part of me almost thinks that he fits better with Portland than Norman Powell does, but maybe I'm wrong. And I like him a lot. I like Siakam. I don't know if he can be a number one guy on a team, but I like him a lot. I love Boucher. So they have a lot of good young talent. But despite that, I don't think they're a playoff team. I have them at 11. I have them just missing the plan. I just don't think that they're there yet. I think that they need more time. I think we need to see what they look like this year, Scottie Barnes as well. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see what the Raptors do. But I just don't think that they're ready to get back into that competitive part of the East just yet. I think they need a little bit more time.
Yeah, my thoughts are along the same lines as Jacob. I have them at 12, a little bit behind the play, and I have them only 3 games behind it. I'm actually pretty high on the Raptors. It's just the East is so deep to the point where I don't think they'll make it. I think Fred VanVleet's actually going to have a big year next year as the primary playmaker and ball handler. I think he's going to take on that role very well, and he's developed every single year of his career as a defender, as a scorer, as a playmaker. I think although his efficiency may be a problem due to his size, I think he's going to flourish as a point guard that could do it all, and I think he's going to have a big year without Kyle Lowry. OG Anunoby is my second-place player for Most Improved Player next year. I think he's going to have a big year, and he looks even more polished as a creator and scorer in preseason, which is even more promising. It adds more fuel to that OG Anunoby for Most Improved Player bid. And they have other guys as well. They have Goran Dragic is one guy that, I don't think he's going to play much at all because they're going to try and find a new home for him soon. But it depends on what they do. If he plays, I think he's going to be an impactful piece. Kem Birch is a guy that I like a lot on both ends of the floor. They also have Chris Boucher, Gary Trent Jr., Malachi Flynn, who I think has a big jump as a backup point guard and solidifies himself as one of the better backup point guards in the league in only his second year. Precious Achiuwa is a guy I like a lot as well. And Scottie Barnes, I think, has one of the 3 or 4 best rookie seasons in the league. I think he could easily do that. And just as a guy that does it all, I think he's going to be very impactful outside of shooting. So as a whole, this is a team that could easily make the play-in and potentially be a top 8 team in the East because Nick Nurse as the coach and all these pieces, I really like it, but I have them at 12. I think they do need a little more time.
I have them as the 9 seed, and I feel like I'm going to be kicking myself when they're in the playoffs because I do think that there's a very real chance they make the playoffs. I'm always irrationally high on the Raptors, but I do think it does make sense, right? Like last year, it was the worst possible scenario. Like, yes, they had 4 top 50 players, but it was ruined by Aaron Baines, who was the worst player in basketball last year. Literally could not protect the rim at all and was just legitimately the worst basketball player last year. Like, I cannot think of a player that would have been worse for the Toronto Raptors as the starting center. They weren't in their own home court. They were in Tampa Bay the entire season. And that's going to play a toll. You're basically playing an away game every single game. And that has an impact, especially Toronto, who has one of the best fan bases in the league. So I think this year, with things a little more, there's not the Kyle Lowry drama anymore. He's gone. This team doesn't have a lot of expectations. I really think they're going to do well. I think OG Anunoby is going to take a big step forward. I think Siakam's going to have, around the same production. Scottie Barnes, I struggled with. I've always struggled with. I don't know how he's going to do year one. I don't really know how he's going to be as a pro. I just have so many concerns. But I do think he is very well-rounded. He is such a good defender. He's going to be at least somewhat impactful from day one. Hopefully they give the keys to Malachi Flynn soon because I really do think he could be a really good starting guard in this league. And Dragic is kind of interesting to me. There's a part of me that thinks, like, you're right, Justin, in the sense that, like, he's probably just going to be gone at the deadline. But there's this other weird part of me that thinks like this could be like his Chris Paul moment in the sense of like, when Chris Paul was on the Rockets and he got injured and everyone was like, oh, Chris Paul's washed. He comes back, has an all-star year. I feel like Goran Dragic could be similar, not to the same extent, but in kind of the case of like, he's a kind of an older veteran point guard, had an injury-riddled year, had one of his worst years to date, comes back in with a new team that doesn't have any expectations whatsoever, has the keys to the offense, can be one of the lead ball handlers, and really shines. I think he'll be good in that Nick Nurse system. Speaking of Nick Nurse, he's one of the best coaches in the NBA as well. So I have them as the 9 seed. I think I could make a compelling argument that they could be a playoff team. I'm not going to make that argument because the East is so good. But yeah, now let's talk about the Philadelphia 76ers. Justin, let's hear it.
So the 76ers, this is the team that I've had the most trouble evaluating by far, and for good reason. The Ben Simmons situation, we don't know what he's going to be traded for. We don't know when he's going to be traded. Those both have big factors. So I'm just looking at this from the point of view from when I think Ben Simmons will realistically be traded and who I think will be traded for. I think he's going to Houston within the first 2 to 4 weeks of the season for John Wall. I think they're just going to get desperate and make that move. And I think John Wall is a better fit on this team, but I don't think he elevates them so much in the regular season, especially considering he didn't have a great year last year. So from that point of view, obviously you have John Wall now, who I think would have a bounce back year, but not to the point where they're really elevated the Philadelphia 76ers. And Joel Embiid, I think, again, this is another guy that struggles to stay healthy. If healthy, he could easily win MVP next year, but that's a big, big if. And as a whole, I do like their surrounding pieces as well. Seth Curry is a guy that I've loved for a long time. Tobias Harris is a very underrated player, in my opinion, a great wing on and off the ball. Danny Green, who you could say what you want about him in the playoffs sometimes, but in the regular season, he's been a great role player, and despite his age, there's no reason for that to change. Matisse Thybulle is one of the 3 to 5 best perimeter defenders in the entire league. So losing Ben Simmons, you still have one of the best defenders in basketball. And outside of that, really, I mean, Shake Milton's fine, but he's not going to be doing too much, I don't think, next year. I mean, Andre Drummond, I still don't understand that signing at all. There's a lot of question marks with this team. And for my standings prediction, for right now, looking at it from the fact that I think they'll get John Wall pretty early in the season, I have them as the 7th seed. And I know that might sound bold, but I think with John Wall, they're more of a playoff team than a regular season team. And they're going to have time to get accustomed to having a guy like that, or really any other player that's not Ben Simmons. So I have them at 7, which is a huge drop-off.
Yeah, I have very mixed feelings about Philly. Without Ben Simmons, which is very likely, I think they're going to struggle a little bit because I think they're going to have a hard time replacing him. But at the same time, I have them as a 5 seed. I think they're going to drop off, but not that much. I think they've always been pretty good in the regular season. They just stink in the playoffs. They don't have that grit, and they have Doc Rivers. But at the same time, I really feel that they're going to be good in the regular season. Tobias Harris, to me, is very good. Doesn't play a lot of D, but he's very good. Embiid, I think he's going to have a great year like he did last year as long as he's healthy. I like a lot of their role players. I like Milton. I like Danny Green. I like Seth Curry. It's very as you can see, it's a very Daryl Morey oriented. He has his fingerprints all over this with the amount of shooting that they have now. And I think that they're going to be good. I think they're definitely going to drop off a little bit. And but I still got them as a 5 seed.
Yeah, I'm kind of right with Jacob. I have them as the 5 seed as well. I think the big thing for me is that I don't see what they're going to miss from Ben Simmons. And I know that sounds kind of crazy, but I think, and I've got an article kind of in the works about this, but I think trading Ben Simmons allows for Matisse Thybulle to get a larger role in this. And I think Matisse Thybulle is the best perimeter defender in the world. Honestly, I truthfully believe that. I think that, and even if you don't think he's better than Ben Simmons, he's at least close. And I think that they won't miss Simmons from the defensive, from the defensive side of the ball. And offensively, the goal is that you add a creator, whether it's John Wall or CJ McCollum or whoever. whoever they get for Ben Simmons is going to be able to hopefully be a better creator than he was, be a better scorer than he was, be a better shooter than he was. So I don't really see what they're going to miss from Ben Simmons. I like their roster, but I don't love it. But I think Joel Embiid is going to be good enough. I think, guys like Seth Curry he had a really good regular season last year. I think Tyrese Maxey is going to take a nice step forward. I'm not, like I said, I'm not super worried about the Ben Simmons situation because I think they have someone who can replace him on defense, and hopefully they'll get someone who will be better than him on offense. So, but with that being said, I still think they are going to decline a little bit in the standings because I think they're going to have to get accustomed to not having Ben Simmons in their offense, and the East did get a lot better. So, but that covers the Atlantic Division. Now let's head to the Central Division and talk about the Chicago Bulls. So wish we had Nader for this one, but we do not. Jacob, you can kick us off here.
All right. Yeah, Nader, sorry, but I'm gonna lay down the law and tell the truth about your team. I like the Bulls. Don't get me wrong, but the bench, they don't have one. They have no bench. Their bench is garbaggio. The reason that I don't like the Bulls very much is, in my opinion, if one of their starters gets hurt and misses a significant amount of time, I think the season's over. It just is. Because who's going to step in and replace them? I mean, if Vucevic gets hurt, who the heck? Gafford's gone. I mean, Markkanen's gone. You know what I mean? I don't feel very good about this team. Patrick Williams is already hurt, And with a lot of these acquisitions that they made, the problem was that they had to get rid of all their bench pieces to get them. So I think that they're very thin, and I think it's going to be very hard for them to make the playoffs in the East. With that being said, now I think the Bulls are going to be better, much, much, much better. And that's why I have them as a play-in team. I have them as my 9 seed. I think they just missed the playoffs, but I think they're going to be much improved. They have a great, great coach in Billy Donovan, and they have a good starting core. It's a good core. I worry about the three-point shooting with that team a lot. But again, it comes down to the bench. The bench really, really, really worries me, and I think it should worry Bulls fans as well. Because again, if one of their best players gets hurt, I think it could make or break their season.
For the Chicago Bulls, ever since they added DeMar DeRozan and Lonzo Ball in free agency, this is a team that I've gone back and forth on. At times, I've thought they're a perennial contender in the Eastern Conference, and at other times, I've thought they're a play-in team in the East. And I'm leaning more towards the play-in side because, as Jacob said, if a player gets injured, like Zach LaVine, Lonzo Ball, DeMar DeRozan, Nikola Vucevic, their roles are hard to replace. Even Patrick Williams, his role is hard to replace because their depth. I mean, I think they have a solid bench because they have Kobe White, who I think makes a big jump in a better role for his play style. And they also added Alex Caruso, who's vastly underrated. But as a whole, I mean, I don't think you really want Derrick Jones Jr. starting for the first part of the year as the power forward. You can't start Tony Bradley there. Troy Brown Jr., although I like him a lot, I don't think you could start him there. But as a whole, I mean, when this team's healthy, they're not an 8 seed, which is where I have them. I have them as the 8 seed, but if they're fully healthy, I think they're around 5 to 6 in the East. And that's just because of their offense. In transition, this might be the best team in basketball. And as a whole, I just think Lonzo Ball and DeMar DeRozan fit perfectly on this team. At first, I thought their skill sets kind of counteract each other, and it's not really the greatest. But I'm thinking about it more, and I don't really think the same about that. Zach LaVine, I think, has another huge year. And Nikola Vucevic, I think statistically he'll drop down a little bit, but I still think he'll be solid. And they have Billy Donovan. Javonte Green's actually been a piece that I've been impressed with in preseason. And the Bulls in preseason as a whole have been great. So as a whole, I mean, this is another team like the Knicks. It's hard for me to really evaluate where they'll finish, but right now I have them as the 8 seed.
I guess I'm higher on the Bulls than you guys are. I have them as the 6th seed. I guess the biggest difference for me is the bench, but more importantly, what I'll get to in a second, this is a team of a bunch of floor raisers, a bunch of guys who've had experience with their own teams being the number one options, and their teams go to the playoffs. Like DeMar with the Spurs, they went to the playoffs a couple times. Nikola Vucevic with the Magic, they went to the playoffs. Now you're kind of pairing all of these guys together. Okay, you have Levine, you have DeRozan, you have Vucevic. Those guys are all 3 great floor raisers. They're all going to put up big time numbers. Not going to play a lot of defense, but they're going to put up big-time numbers, and hopefully they will play a little more defense now that their roles are kind of being reduced. And then you kind of have two guys that are like the glue with Lonzo Ball and Patrick Williams. Those guys are going to kind of glue all of them together. They're going to be the ones playing defense, making connective passes, knocking down open threes, all that kind of stuff. They're going to be role players, but very, very valuable ones. And I think Patrick Williams, I love Patrick Williams. I think he's fantastic. I do think his development could be a little stunted this year. But I also don't think the bench is as bad. I'm a big Kobe White guy. I like Caruso. And I guess I'm just not yes, I could sit here and say, oh, if they do get injured, then, it's not going to work. I hate betting on injuries. I really do. Zach LaVine hasn't been injured in like 3 years, I think. I can't even remember the last time DeMar DeRozan's been injured. Same thing with Vucevic. Lonzo has never, I don't think has suffered a major injury in his career so far. I hate betting on injuries, and I think their bench is fine. Like I said, two good bench guards. They don't have a good bench big unless they decide to properly use Daniel Oturu. Whatever. My point is, I've gone on long enough. I like the Bulls a little more than you guys do. I think they're going to be a pretty solidified playoff team this year. But now we can talk about the Detroit Pistons. So taking a break from the playoff teams, hopefully. I don't know what you guys think, but let's start with Justin.
Yeah, so we are taking a break from the playoff teams, and the Detroit Pistons obviously had the first overall pick in this past year's draft, and they selected Cade Cunningham, who I actually don't think he wins Rookie of the Year, but I think he's still going to be the best player in this class at the end of the day, and he's going to be the engine of this offense, and I do think the Pistons have potential as a surprise team and potentially a play-in team, but I still have them as the 13th seed in the Eastern Conference. I don't think Cade Cunningham's going to be able to do this all on his own right away. Jeremy Grant, I think, has a better year than last year, maybe not statistically, but efficiency-wise and defensively, I think he has a better year, and he showed signs as a playmaker throughout the year as well. So with more offensive pieces and guys developing more on this roster, I think he improves as a whole. And guys like Saddiq Bey, Isaiah Stewart are two guys I really like a lot. I'm still a little unsure of the Killian Hayes and Cade Cunningham fit, but I don't think it's going to be too detrimental, especially considering this team doesn't really have many expectations. So I think they might have their moments where they don't look great together, but they're going to have their moments where they could coexist. And as a whole, I just don't really like this bench. Kelly Olynyk's a solid piece who fits well, but that's your best player off the bench. I mean, Hamidou Diallo is a solid player as well, and I think he steps into a bigger role next year. And Josh Jackson's pretty solid. I like Corey Joseph, but I don't know. And I do like Dwayne Casey still as well. Maybe not as a coach for a contender, but I like him for a team like this that's trying to get over the hump. They're not going to make the playoffs or the play-in, but I wouldn't be surprised if they made a run at the play-in.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Justin said. Yeah, Detroit, I like what they have as a young core. Cade, Saddiq Bey, Isaiah Stewart, Josh Jackson. They have a lot as far as young cores go, but they're not ready to contend. They're just not there yet. It's going to take time. I hope they stick with Dwayne Casey because I think it's good that they have a guy that's seasoned like him to coach a young team like this. I think he's perfect, and I hope they give him time because I think that if they don't, it will be a mistake. I think it's very important for a young team to have a coach. Like, look at what Detroit Zion's had. He said he's on his third coach now. He's only been in the league for 3-4 years. That's a recipe for disaster, in my opinion. So I think it's important they stick with Dwayne Casey. Again, Cade Cunningham, he's great, but how much can he do in his first year, especially with a team like this? I like the Pistons, but yeah, they're my 14 seed. They're just not ready.
Yeah, they're also my 14 seed. There's a lot to like about this young core. I love Cade. I still think Killian Hayes is going to be a very good player. Saddiq Bey and Isaiah Stewart are really good. I even like Saban Lee off the bench. I talk about Saban Lee way too much. It's kind of weird. But I just, in terms of right now, I think they'll be okay. They'll be normal bad as opposed to bad, if that makes any sense. I think there will be some moments where they are a competent team right now, and then I think there will be some moments where it's all right, these guys are still young, still trying to figure it out. Cade is my rookie of the year for what it's worth. I think Jeremy Grant will have a solid year, and I do think Killian Hayes is going to bounce back. I'm still keeping my eggs in the Killian Hayes basket. I don't know if it's going to work out, but it's worth a shot. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Now let's talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers. Let's do that. Jacob, you can go first. Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you, Thomas. My bad. Anywho, the Cavs, obviously, they have a lot of young talent, but they have the worst coach in the NBA.
Oh man.
And you laugh, but it's
Here we
true.
go.
It's true. I don't understand. And yeah, I may have a vendetta against Jay Bickerstaff. Well, you know who else should? The rest of the NBA. Give me one discernible reason why this guy should be a head coach. One. He took over for John Beeline. Ooh, wow. I mean, gee, what a tough sell, or what a tough way to get better. Like, what a low standard for crying out loud. Anywho, I don't like Sexton and Garland together. I don't think it's going to work. It's definitely not going to work defensively. They're not Lillard and McCollum. They're never going to be Lillard and McCollum. I like Jared Allen a lot. I like Mobley a lot. And I do think they have a good young core, but I'm not crazy about Okoro. I don't think he can score. And I don't like their bench. It's a very odd bench. It's just – the East is too loaded. And as long as Jay Bickerstaff is at the helm, they're never going to win. So it's simple as that. 13
seed?
Hold on. Oh, yeah. They are my 13 seed. You must have read my list before.
Look at that.
Where to go?
All right, yeah. So for Cleveland, I have them in the same range. I have them as the 14 seed, actually. And this team it's a team that has a good amount of talent on its roster, but it's just such a weird fit. I mean, I think Darius Garland's going to make a big jump next year, and he even made a pretty big jump last year. I think he improves upon that as well. Colin Sexton's another guy that I don't like his situation on this team, especially with Darius Garland. I think put him on a team like the Mavericks or the Knicks. He's an all-star player in a few years, but it's just the Cavaliers, it makes it really tough because they're not really developing his playmaking and defense the way it can be for a guy like Colin Sexton. Evan Mobley, I think upon entry in the league, by mid-season, we'll be calling him a top 20 defender in the NBA. I just think he's that good. He's not going to win Rookie of the Year, but he's going to be so impactful right away on both ends of the floor. But then you put Jared Allen next to him, who is a great player, but I don't like that fit because he can't shoot the ball, and Evan Mobley can shoot the ball, but you don't want him shooting. As of right, I would rather have Evan Mobley as a slasher and getting to the rim more so than being a spot-up shooter as of right now. And then you have Lauri Markkanen and Kevin Love off the bench, which is probably the worst defensive front court known to man. And if they're on the court together, JB Bickerstaff does need to be fired. So I'll agree with Jacob there. And I like Isaac Okoro a lot. I think the rookie Rubio addition was nice, but this team has it's just the fit is so weird. So I have them as the 14 seed.
I hate that they're from a roster construction standpoint. I hate the Cavaliers. I hate the Mobley Allen thing. I don't think it's going to work. Mobley is a 5. Okay. Maybe not right now because he does need to, bulk up a little bit. But I don't like Mobley and Allen long-term, despite how much I like those two individually. Kevin Love and Lauri Markkanen, that is just so weird. Like I can't even wrap my head. Kevin Love is still on this team. I think that's the weirdest thing for me. I like Garland a lot. I like Sexton a lot. I like those guys individually, but again, I think putting those two guys together on the defensive end of the floor is asking for the other team's best perimeter player to score 40. And I also think offensively, there's going to be some troubles. And Isaac Okoro, I'm a little concerned. I understand it's preseason, but this should be the time for guys like him to, show flashes of being good. So far, he has been 4 for 14 from the field, 5 of 10 from the line, 1 of 5 from 3. The point of attack defense has not been good. I don't know how much you guys have been watching Isaac Okoro point of attack defense, but it has not been good. He's recorded two assists and 3 rebounds. 3 assists and 4 rebounds, including today's performance. I don't know. I don't know with him. He is the ultimate wild card. I think he's got a lot of alluring traits, but I also think he's not a very good offensive player, and I think his defense can be questionable at times. I had him as my 25th ranked player on my board when he was, I don't know, like a top 5 pick. So I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there to spread my agenda, to try to, I don't know, but just kind of throwing it out there that there may be some question marks. But yeah, this team's just really weird from a roster construction standpoint. I don't quite have the feelings Jacob has towards JB Bickerstaff, but I'm not a huge fan. So let's not talk about JB Bickerstaff anymore. Milwaukee Bucks, the reigning NBA champions. Justin, kick it off for us.
The Milwaukee Bucks. I mean, this is still the second best team in the Eastern Conference, but I have them as my 3rd seed. I'll get to my 2nd seed once we talk about them, but I have the Milwaukee Bucks as my 3rd seed, and I still haven't made a solidified pick for MVP yet, but I think there's a very good chance Giannis wins his 3rd in 4 years, mainly because I think he hasn't won one in a year. He just won a title, and the main thing was Giannis can't do it in the playoffs, and that turned a lot of people against him. Well, he just did it in the playoffs, so I think that's going to turn a lot of people back in that direction. And Giannis had an MVP year last year. Jokic still deserved the award, but Giannis was a pretty close 2nd or 3rd guy in that race, and I think he's going to make a run. And as of right now, I would probably pick him, but we're not talking about the MVP. But as a whole, Chris Middleton, I mean, I think he actually takes a jump next year. And I think he's going to be an all-star, which he wasn't last year. I think his scoring will increase. I think his playmaking numbers will increase. I think as a defender, he'll get even better. I think he actually takes a pretty big jump for what he is right now. Dante DiVincenzo is a guy that I really like a lot. Drew Holiday obviously had his inconsistencies in the playoffs, but in the regular season, he's one of the best defenders in the league for his position, and he's a great playmaker and pretty good scorer as well. Brook Lopez, I still have concerns about him. I think Giannis should still be the 5, but in the playoffs, they won the title with him as the starting center, and it proved to work and actually look pretty good. So I'm not going to be too concerned about that just yet, but the problems could arise with him in that lineup. And they brought back George Hill, who they had a few years ago, who fit in like a glove with the team. Pat Connaughton was great in the playoffs. Bobby Portis is one of the better bench players in all of basketball. And Grayson Allen, I think, could be in that role of a Dante DiVincenzo, Pat Connaughton type of player. So overall, I think this team is going to be great in the regular season. Not maybe as good as people think, but I still think they're going to make a run in the playoffs and maybe not make the finals again or win the title, but they're going to be one of the best teams in the league by a good amount.
Yeah, I agree with Justin. They're my number 1 seed in the East. I love Milwaukee. I think they're going to be a great team. I like the way that they play. I love that they have their core together for the most part. I think this whole notion that Mike Budenholzer is not a good coach or not a good enough coach is a total freaking crock. It's ridiculous talk, in my opinion. All the guy really does is like win. I mean, yes, he took him on to win a championship, but the way the jump that he has made with Everson, when they got from Jason Kidd to him, it's seismic. The jump that they took, seismic, and I think they're going to pick up right where they left off. DiVincenzo is going to be healthy this time around. I like their bench. I like Giannis. I love Middleton. I like Brook Lopez. I like them all. And to me, Milwaukee is going to pick up right where they left off. I think that they're going to feel motivated to prove that last year was not a fluke and that they didn't just win because Brooklyn had injuries and whatnot, that they were the deserved winner. I think that Giannis always plays with the chip on his shoulder. He is never, ever satisfied, which is a good thing because it shows how much he wants to be the best. And I think that they're going to – I don't think that they want to be hunted. I think they want to be hunters. I don't think that they want to be like, come get us. I feel like they feel like we're in a come get you attitude, if that makes any sense. And I think that they're going to pick up right where they left off, and they're going to be great. And, yeah, number 1 seed in the East.
Yeah, they're my number 3 seed. I mean, I can't really dispute anything you said. I guess I don't really know what their mentality is going to be. But last year, like, they kind of were slower in the regular season. Like, they were trying new things. They were experimenting with different lineups, with the way they were utilizing guys. And it kind of, took a step back in the regular season. But they ended up winning the championship. And I feel like this year it could be something a little bit similar, except to an even greater extent where they're the 3 seed just because the East is really, really good. But, like, the Bucks are great. Like, I really don't have anything else to say other than I think they are going to take a tiny, tiny step back in the regular season. And yeah, that's all I really have to say on the Bucks. I think you guys pretty much covered everything. Last team in the Central Division, the Indiana Pacers. Jacob, I'll let you start.
Thank you. I'm very, very, very high on Indiana. I think they're going to be a really good team this year. They have a real NBA head coach. They didn't have one last year. They had a phony, and Nate Bjorken, who's probably never going to be a head coach again, deservedly so. I don't know how the heck they didn't play better with the talent that they had. I know they had injuries, but still. I think this is one of the most underrated rosters in the NBA. You have LeVert, you have Warren, you have Brogdon, you have McConnell, you have Sabonis, you have Turner. You have a lot of wealth and resources at your disposal. And I think Rick Carlisle is a perfect fit for this team. As good as he was in Dallas, they hadn't won a playoff game or won a series, I think, since they won the finals. I think it was time for him to go. Don't think they did a good job finding his replacement, but that's another story. I like how he fits in with this team. He knows Indiana. He used to coach there. And I think that he could be coach of the year. I had him being coach of the year. I have Indiana as my 5 seed. Or wait, excuse me. No, 6 seed. Excuse me. That's my 5 seed. I have them as a 6 seed. And yeah, I think they're going to surprise people. I really do. I think they're going to have a really good year. A lot of it hinges on them being healthy. A lot. And that's a big, big if. But if they are healthy, they're going to wreak havoc in the East.
I thought I was going to be the only one here that was high on the Pacers, but Jacob and I have them as the same seed. I have the Pacers as the 6th seed as well. And I think a fully healthy Pacers team, especially with some minor additions they made this offseason, I think they're going to be a great regular season team. I think Karis LeVert makes the jump into the team's best player. I think he's a top 3 candidate for most improved player for next season. And that's mainly due to him being healthy, if he is healthy, if he gets in that race. I think that's mainly due to him being healthy rather than just breaking out. But as a whole, I really like the construction of this team outside of their front court, really. Malcolm Brogdon, he jumped into an all-star level player last year. I don't think that'll change. TJ Warren, who's going to be back, I think he's going to play great. TJ McConnell off the bench. Jeremy Lamb, who might get traded, but he's still on the team for now. Justin Holiday, who had a great year. And Chris Duarte, I think, is going to make an all-rookie team, potentially all-rookie first. And O'Shea Brissett's a guy that I think could make an impact on this team. I still have questions about the front court because Sabonis is a center, even though he can't play defense really at all. He's a center, and that's where his skill set resides. So I think problems will come up in the playoffs. But as a whole, with Carlisle as their coach, Miles Turner's looked better and more mobile, so that's going to be a big help. As a whole, I really like this roster. I think they're going to win games in the regular season.
I think they're fine. I'm not crazy about anyone on their roster. I know a lot of people really, really like Karis LeVert, and I think he's a good player. But I guess I'm not as high on him as a lot of other people. I've seen that he's been a pretty popular pick for most improved player. I don't really see that. But I think he's going to have a good year. I think Sabonis is solid, but I don't think he's quite the all-star that he was selected to be last year. Turner is really a really good defender. Chris Duarte is awesome. I do think he's going to make an all-rookie team, and I think he's the perfect kind of guy for the Pacers. If they are really committed to winning now, I mean, that's what it's looked like. Otherwise, they wouldn't have drafted a 24-year-old in the lottery. I love Chris Duarte. That's not Chris Duarte slander, but I just think it's pretty clear what their philosophy has been all offseason. They are looking to win right now. That's why they didn't deal away any of the guys they wanted to. That's why they didn't pick, more of an upside-y guy at 13. They want to win right now. They're pretty committed to that. I don't think they're going to do it very well, but at least they're committed to it. I think they'll be flirting with the play-in at the 11th seed, but I guess I'm a little bit lower just because I'm not super crazy about their roster. But now that's the end of the Central Division. Miami Heat kick us off with the Southeast Division. Justin.
So the Miami Heat, this is a team that in the regular season, I don't think they're going to be great. I think they're more of a playoff team, which is why I have them only as the 5th seed. I think they're the 3rd best team in the East. But in the regular season, first of all, I think they're going to take a while to really develop perfect chemistry. And Kyle Lowry is actually a much better fit than I thought. I knew he'd be an amazing fit, but I didn't think he'd be the perfect fit. He's proven to be just that in the preseason. It's looked great. And Jimmy Butler is obviously didn't have a great playoff run, but it's still one of the best players in the NBA on both sides of the ball. Bam Adebayo, I think, takes a major scoring jump. And then Tyler Hero, I think, is another guy that might break out, and I think he's a Sixth Man of the Year candidate. Overall, although I think PJ Tucker could fall off a little bit, and with that happening, there would be a hole at the 4. I think this is still a great team. I think they're a team that will be in the top 5, at worst 6, but I think my top 5 is pretty far apart from 6 and below. So as a whole, I have the Heat as a top 5 seed, and in the playoffs, I think they'll win a round, but that's it.
Yeah, I actually have the opposite take of Justin. I think the Heat are going to be great in the regular season. I think they're going to fall apart in the first round and get upset in the playoffs. I actually have them as my 3 seed. I think they're going to have a great regular season. I like Kyle Lowry. He's more of a regular season guy. He's very good in the regular season. He's in the playoffs. I don't know. I've never been crazy about Jimmy Butler. I think he's a baby. I think he whines a lot, which is why he gets traded every year. That's why no one wants to play with him unless, if they do, then they're crazy. But he is a hell of a talent. He's a heck of a basketball player. I do like his ferocity at times. And I love Spoelstra. I think he's a great coach. Will Loughlin, I think, said he's like the best coach in the NBA. I don't know about that, but he's damn sure right up there. I like this team. I like PJ Tucker a lot. I feel like he's a perfect fit for Miami. I thought the Nets should have went after him. And, I like Lowry. I like their core, Jimmy. I'm not crazy about Tyler Hero, but again, he's coming off the bench, so we'll see what happens. And yeah, I still think they're gonna be very good. Oladipo coming off the bench, I think, is very, very interesting because I feel like he's gonna have a lot to prove, because he wants to prove that he's not a scrub anymore, and I think he will prove that. How good he's gonna be, I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, I got them as the 3 seed. I feel confident about that. But yeah, I think they're gonna lose in the first round.
They are my 4 seed. Kind of echoing. I just like that they really do a good job of combining like elite level rim protection with a bunch of high level shooting. I think that's a good recipe for success in the regular season. I think Duncan Robinson is going to take a sneaky step forward. I'm a big fan of Duncan Robinson. I think they're going to do a much better job. I thought last year they could have used him a little bit better. I honestly think he should be taking more shots within the flow of their offense. That's just me. I'd have him shooting 12 threes a game if it were up to me. I'm not the head coach of Miami, but he is one of the best shooters in the NBA. I think he's going to take a pretty solid leap forward. I think Tyler Hero is still a good player, despite what Twitter will tell you. I really do like Miami. I think they're a solid, well-rounded team. Like I said, if you're able to combine high-level rim protection, and obviously other sound defense with good perimeter shooting, you're going to be a good regular season team. And that's exactly what I think the Miami Heat are going to be. Now let's talk about the Charlotte Hornets. Jacob, lead the way.
Yep, the Hornets. Interesting team. They're my 10 seed, and it's not because I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy about them, but I don't know if they're going to – I just don't know how much they're going to improve. I like them a lot. What I really don't like about them is I think they have no front court depth. They have no size. I think they're going to get killed on the boards all year long. I like PJ Washington, but he's a little small. I like Mason Plumley a lot, but I don't think they have a lot of depth behind him. And I'm worried about that. I think that they're very good in the backcourt. They have a lot of good guard play. They're good on the wings with Hayward, Bridges, people like that. But I think the front court is where they're going to be pretty dire. I don't love what they have behind Plumlee. And the East is very crowded and it's very good. But I still think they get in that last play-in spot. And I feel confident about that. And yeah, I have them as my 10th seed.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with Jacob once again. I have the Hornets as my 10th seed as well. And this is a team that could easily be higher, in my opinion. I also think they're a team that could be anywhere from 6 to 10 in the East. But as Jacob said, I really love the starting lineup. I think LaMelo Ball potentially could be an all-star this year. Terry Rozier is another guy that I think makes another jump in his career. Gordon Hayward, if healthy, again, that's a huge if. If healthy, he's going to be a huge part to the team's success. Miles Bridges is a breakout player to watch. PJ Washington's going to be great off the bench or maybe starting, who knows. And Mason Plumlee is definitely an upgrade for the center position, but I just don't really like this depth. I do like the Kelly Oubre addition. I do like that a lot because I think he's just a guy that's going to be able to be implemented as a cutter and a slasher, and at times shooting threes, but not too much. So I think that's his best role. But I mean, I don't think James Bouknight's going to be too impactful right away. And Kai Jones is a guy that I had very high on my big board, but I don't think he's going to be very impactful at all right away. And Jalen McDaniels is another guy that I like a lot. But I mean, I have the Hornets at 10, and I think that's a good spot.
Yep, we are all in agreement. I have them as the 10 seed as well. Look at that. I really do like Charlotte. There's part of me that wants to put them higher. I say that about every team. But I really do think the Hornets have a good roster. I'm probably higher on LaMelo than pretty much everyone else. I think that dude is going to be a top 10 player sometime, probably not soon, not next year, but pretty soon. I think he's going to be a top 10 player. I like the surrounding pieces they have with him. I think they've done a really good job of surrounding LaMelo with a bunch of high-level athletes, which I think is the biggest thing. Like if you have someone that's such a good pick-and-roll player, such a good passer, such a good lob passer, you need to surround him with a bunch of athletes who are going to be able to finish plays around the basket, and that's exactly what they've done. They drafted James Bouknight. They have Miles Bridges. P.J. Washington's a good athlete. And what I also like is they've surrounded him with like a bunch of like off-guard scoring wings. Which Terry Rozier, James Bouknight. I wish they didn't get rid of Malik Monk. He would have kind of fit that mold as well. And then they've got a couple of project-y guys that I don't think will be too impactful next year. But if Kai Jones or JT Thor pan out, I think that kind of fits the mold of like, once again, like athletic kind of play finishers around the rim. So I like their roster. I like James Borrego. I think he's a really good head coach who instills discipline in his players. And I would not be surprised if they were flirting with the playoffs, if they were the 9 or the 10 seed. I think they're going to be pretty good. I just think the East is also really good. So now let's talk about the Washington Wizards. Justin, kick us off.
So a lot of people have claimed that the Wizards are better than last year, and I think it's hard to really evaluate that because the Wizards are deeper, but at the same time, the star power isn't there. And they do have a better coach, Wes Unseld Jr., who I think will be a solid coach. It still remains to be seen, but I like what he brings defensively. He's emphasized making rotations, which is something that the Wizards have needed for a long time now. So that's going to be huge. But I have this team outside of the play-in, unfortunately. I have them as the 11th seed. I think Bradley Beal has another 30-point-per-game year, but as a whole, I think the East is too good. Spencer Dinwiddie, I think, will take some time to get accustomed to the NBA again, and I think he'll be great towards the second half of the year. I just don't think it's for the entire year. Rui Hachimura, when he comes back, we don't know, but I think he's going to have a pretty big year when he plays. And Daniel Gafford as well, I think, is going to look phenomenal on the defensive end. It's just as a whole, I mean, the East is too good with the coaching changes and with the depth increase. The Wizards do look pretty good. It's just the coaching. It's hard to. I'm at the seeding with the East. It's hard to evaluate since every team is good, basically.
Yeah, they're my 12 seed. Wizards is not very good in my opinion. I mean, I don't think Bradley Beal. I mean, he had a hard time winning with Russell Westbrook. What the heck do you think he's going to do with Corey Kispert, Kyle Kuzma, KCP, and Montrezl Harrell? I mean, come on. I mean, he's out of your mind. I mean, I don't know what. I mean, I get it. You're loyal, but I mean, it's almost like he's going through the Mike Trout problem where I guess I don't know if he really wants to win or not. But that's another discussion for a baseball show, which we are not. Anyway, I am not high on the Wizards. I mean, I don't know. They have a lot of solid players. I love Denny Avdia. You know, as a proud Israeli, I love Denny Avdia. I hope he is amazing. But I'm worried that the Wizards will ruin him some way, somehow. Why, I don't know, but they'll find a way. But again, yeah, I'm not very high on the Wizards. I don't have a lot to say about them. I hope that they give Wes Unseld Jr. time because I think that he has the makings to be a good coach, but it's going to take time if they want to win.
Yeah, I'm not super crazy about the Wizards either. I have them as my 13 seed. I think Bradley Beal is going to average somewhere between 25 and 75 points per game. I haven't really decided where, but I think he'll somewhere in there. He'll just put up a ton of points. But I don't really think they're going to win many games. I don't love a ton of their young core. If I'm being honest, I'm sorry. I want Denny to be very, very good. I want him to be good because I think he's a really good player, someone that's good to root for, but I have my skepticisms about him. I really don't like Rui Hachimura, but I do like Daniel Gafford, and I think if he's a good enough rim protector and Bradley Beal and Spencer Dinwiddie, those guys have pretty solid years. Maybe Corey Kispert makes a good impact. Maybe Kuzma has a pretty good year. I think if they do all of that, they could be the 13th seed in the East. So, yeah, unfortunately, maybe when you trade Bradley Beal, you'll get a really good package and you can start a rebuild. All right, we're at the home stretch here. We got 2 teams left. The Orlando Magic. Justin.
The Orlando Magic might be the worst team in the league. I have them as the 15th seed. I think they're the second worst team behind the Thunder. I'm sorry, Thomas. But I don't think this is a team that teams are going to be able to walk all over. I mean, they have pretty good personnel in the backcourt. I think RJ Hampton makes a pretty big jump next year. I really like him a lot. And Cole Anthony's a great player as well, a great scorer off the bench. Jalen Suggs, I think, is going to have a Tyrese Halliburton-esque rookie year. And the front court's pretty solid as well. Jonathan Isaac can't stay on the court, but when he does, he's one of the best defenders in the league. Wendell Carter Jr. has looked pretty good in preseason, and since he's been on the Magic, he's looked great. But there's really no wing depth, and this is just a team that doesn't really have a standout guy. It's just a bunch of solid prospects along with Jonathan Isaac, Wendell Carter Jr. I think they're going to be the worst team in the East by a pretty good margin, but I don't think they're going to be a team you could walk all over.
Yeah, I agree with Justin. I love Jamal Mosley. I love their new coach. I love the defensive mindset he brings, but I think this team is lacking in talent, and I also have them as my 15 seed. I don't think they're going to be very good. But again, I agree. You're not going to walk all over them. I think they're going to be really tough. I think their coach is going to instill that in them. I don't understand them drafting Jalen Suggs because I just don't. I mean, they gave Markelle Fultz an extension. They just drafted Cole Anthony. They have RJ Hampton. I have no idea how they're going to make that work. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But Wendell Carter's a nice young piece. Mo Bamba's a nice young piece. So it'll be interesting to see. But again, sorry, Orlando, but it's going to be a long way back to the top, or I guess the playoffs, for lack of a better word.
Yep, they're my 15th seed as well. I'm not going to talk about what I think they're going to do this season because I don't think they're going to be very good. I think they're pretty easily the worst team in the league. I guess I'll just kind of talk about their young guys. I mean, they've got a lot of guards. I don't really know how they're going to handle the whole situation. I don't think Markelle Fultz is very good, unfortunately. I just think he is a really good slasher. He's a solid passer, a solid defender, but he's just not a good scorer. He's just not. He's not a good shooter at all. He's not efficient from anywhere on the floor. And he's not a good enough passer or defender for me to fully overlook those things. Ben Simmons isn't good enough as a scorer or shooter, and he's way better as a passer and defender than Fultz is. I know that's kind of a tricky comparison to make, but I do think it does have some truth to it. I like Franz Wagner, I think, more than anyone. I think he is the perfect fourth starter for your team. He is an amazing defender. With so many different micro skills on defense, has Draymond Green instincts, combines it with immense physical tools of his strength and his ground coverage and just everything. I liked him more than Suggs in pre-draft, which is not a popular opinion. And I like Jonathan Isaac. Don't know if he'll be healthy. I like Wendell Carter. But again, there's a lot of young guys that I'm interested in. Suggs, Wagner, Hampton, Cole, Wendell Carter. You even want to throw Chumo, KK in there. But not a lot of guys I'm interested in right now. So they're going to be really bad. But the Hawks, let's switch it up from the bad to the good. And for once, I am going to start. The host gets to start for the final one. That's a new rule I'm making. The Atlanta Hawks, I have them as my number 2 seed. I have Trae Young winning MVP. I think this is a team that if the Brooklyn falls in injury shambles, if the Bucks don't live up to expectations again, this could be a sneaky finals team. They've got the best depth in the NBA. I think Nate McMillan is a really, really good coach. I still don't really know why the Pacers fired him, but that's besides the point. I think Trae Young is really, really amazing. They've done a great job surrounding him with ancillary wings and lob threats and rim protectors. And they've just, the roster construction for this team is just so good. They killed the draft with Jalen Johnson and Sharif Cooper. They've got just so many good players, so many good wings, big depth, wing depth, guard depth. They've got everything. They've got a superstar to run their offense through. They've got secondary creators. I see no reason to not be high on the Hawks. I have them as my number 2 seed. Wanted to put them as the number 1 seed. I didn't do it. But I think the Hawks are going to be really, really good.
Yeah, I'll go if you don't mind. I like the Hawks as well. I have them as my 4 seed. I think they're going to be really, really good. I think the fact that they have a full year under McMillan is a good sign. I think he's a great coach. They went for, I think, again, I don't know why Lloyd Pierce, I think he was the worst coach in the NBA. And yes, worse than JB Bickerstaff. I'm going to say that. That's how bad of a coach Lloyd Pierce was. It's amazing how they went from a garbage team to an amazing team like that. And I think a full year under him, they're only going to get better. The continuity is going to be there. The chemistry is going to be there. They have a great core. I love their core. I don't feel like mentioning all the names because they have so many, and you know who they are. I like them a lot. I think that they're going to be a very good 4 seed. I think that they have a chance to cause ruckus in the playoffs.
Yeah, I have them as the 2nd seed as well. Trae Young is a very, very sleeper pick, big sleeper pick for MVP, and I could easily see him winning it. And this is a team, they are the deepest team in basketball, I believe. And just looking at their roster, it's just so many young guys. There's no reason to expect that they get worse, especially with a full offseason of training with Nate McMillan. They had the 3rd best record in the regular season last year with Nate McMillan, and then they followed that up with the conference finals. And the teams they played didn't even really have any big injuries. So I really see no reason for them to be worse when every single player on this team is going to grow, despite Onyeka Okongwu getting hurt and probably not playing the whole year. There's no reason for them to be worse or not grow in the regular season. They're the 2nd seed, and depending on the Nets' health, they could easily be the 1st seed as well. So I have the Hawks at 2nd. That might be bold. Thomas said it as well. But they're going to be the 2nd best team in the East. And I have them as the 2nd best team league-wide record-wise.
Yeah, and this is a very long episode, but I think a very, very good one. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Like I said, make sure to download the TWSN mobile app. Make sure to go follow us on all of our social medias. Make sure to go follow us, specifically me, Justin, and Jacob, on Twitter. You can catch all of our NBA content on there. Yeah, that's it for me, guys. Hopefully we'll get Will Lachlan back next week, and Nader. Justin, we'll miss you next week. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys. See you next week.
Get up, let me begin. This is TWSN. You ain't heard about us yet, well you better know now, because it's the place that it all goes down on.